All right, guys, we are rounding the corner, day 2, man. If you guys get some value, I need some emojis because that's how we communicate in webinars. If not, if we were in a live setting, I'd have you guys, scream and shout and stuff. But there's people all over. We got 250 business owners, and can you imagine the amount of money that you could be making right now in sales? But instead, you decide to spend your time with us here at Liftoff. Always grateful. We are trying to put on a great event for you guys virtually. Couple reminders: the expo's coming up in Orlando. Would love to meet some of you. This might be the first time you go to an expo. You might be like, "Is it worth paying $800 for a ticket? Is it worth paying to pay for a hotel to get there? Is it worth paying for a flight to get there?" First of all, every bit of that's a write-off. Tell your accountant you plan on doing it, and all the food you buy and everything that you do there is a write-off for your business. Invest in that. If you do one event per year, it could change the trajectory of your business. If you think this is valuable, imagine being at a round table, actually face-to-face with individuals, or having sidebar conversations where people are just unloading their secrets of how they're being successful. Actually, our good friend Nick Slavic attributes the expo link is PCA Painted. Just go to the PCA website. It's on there. Big Thing Expo. Easy to find. But Nick Slavic, our guy, he is attributing Expo to meeting Jason Paris and to expanding his business. So come on, guys, make sure you sign up. I would love to meet you. And we're just gonna have a great time there. All right. So next up, we got Micah McLean. I'm gonna bring you up to the stage, brother. Let's get you up here. We are moving at a good pace today. We got some awesome speakers coming up. Micah, what's up, my man?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
Good, brother. Good. So Micah, he's one of the hometown heroes. He's not too far from me, Florida guy, and really somebody that I admire in terms of the way he conducts business. Everybody that I bring on here is somebody that I value. I wouldn't put anyone in front of you that I didn't think would have your best interest in mind. Micah, you're a stand-up guy. You're calculated in the way that you do business. You're an absolute brain when it comes to marketing. And man, we're just excited to have you. And by the way, Micah took a voluntary position to help people in Dripjobs that are having technical issues setting up their
Yeah.
domains for the
Yeah.
blast, which we very much appreciate his
Yeah,
help in
absolutely.
doing that, man. So,
Yeah.
Micah, man, run it, brother. Let's see how many we got here. We got 250 plus. All eyes on
Cool.
you, my man. We're excited.
Awesome, man. Well, cool. Let me share my screen here real quick. Awesome, guys. Well, I appreciate being here. Guys, this is an amazing event, and I've been chiming in and out since yesterday. A bunch of amazing speakers. Super excited to be here. Very honored, and everyone just give a thumbs up for Tanner for putting this whole thing on. That's just really super amazing. Um, so when I saw the lineup, when I got asked to be here, I saw the lineup, and there's a bit of marketer. Someone actually commented a second ago, "Go, I can't wait for the next marketer." And funny enough, here I am, another marketer. So sorry, Aaron, you'll have to put up with me before you get to someone that's a non-marketer. But I saw a bunch of marketing stuff in here, and everybody's amazing. Justin was awesome. That last bit was great. But I knew that everyone was going to come with a bunch of tactics. So most of you guys that know me know I'm really into Google Ads, very advanced. Like Tanner said, I'm very like numbers, very methodical. But I knew we had a bunch of tactic stuff coming from some of the other guys, and I didn't want to do the same thing. So what I thought I'd do is I'd step back and talk about a bigger picture concept. And so I created this to talk about how we can create better companies using branding. Now, to do that, I'd like to start with a little bit of backstory on me. So I was in the Air Force from 2000 to 2006, and that was during the 9/11 conflict. So I was actually asleep when 9/11 happened. I was working graveyard shift, and I got a call in the middle of the night. I just got home, went to bed, got a call in the middle of the night, threw my phone across the room, and phone kept ringing. So finally, I kind of begrudgingly got up, opened and got the phone. It was my boss. He's like, "Why aren't you in?" I'm like, "I just got home. What do you mean? Why am I not in?" And he was like, "Turn on the TV, take 5 minutes, and then get your butt to work." And so I did. And, we all know what happened there. So got to work, went in the shop. Of course, we're deploying pretty much immediately. So now this part isn't the part of this isn't really that critical. But when I knew that I had to deploy, we were going for an unknown amount of time. We didn't know if it was going to be 3 months, 3 years, or how long it was going to be. So I started asking some of the people. I was brand new. I was really young. Like I think I just turned 20. And so I asked some of the senior guys that had been on deployments before, like, hey, what do I do? What do I pack? Like, what do I need to? I have no idea. I've never done this before. And pretty unanimously, everyone was like, you got to bring some form of entertainment. You're going to have like, yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on, but you're going to have lots of boredom time. So bring like a music player, a book, or whatever you want to do. I'm like, cool. I didn't have a portable music player, so I decided to go to an electronics store and buy one. And what was interesting is I go into this this electronics store. Circuit City is kind of the Best Buy of that day, and I'm standing in front of this giant display of what seemed like 1,000 choices. And there was all these Japanese brands that I had never heard of, and Toshiba and Sony and all these brands. And I'm reading the packages. I'm trying to make a decision on what to buy. I don't have a lot of time. And the entire process for trying to figure out what was a good product to choose was convoluted. I'm looking at like tech specs and data rates and all these numbers, but there's nothing really helping me make the decision. Now, keep in mind, I worked on airplanes. I was a very, very technical guy. My job was troubleshooting airplanes. When something breaks, I'd look at these giant schematics and I would have to pinpoint what part was broken based on a symptom. So I've never been technologically illiterate. And I'm sitting here and I can't make a choice. Now, fast forward, I ended up picking one at random. I deployed, came back, everything was fine. While I was gone, ironically, about 2 months later, just a couple months after 9/11, in the fall of 2011, something pretty cool happened. Now, I didn't see it at the time. I watched a replay of this later. But we've all heard of the iPod. Steve Jobs came out in his famous keynote speech. And after an hour or two of talking about this computer and this new system and this new software, all the typical stuff, he's standing around walking on stage with his jeans and his black turtleneck, as you can see in the picture, typical Steve Jobs single attire wardrobe. And he just reaches his hand in his pocket and pulls out this little white thing, as you can see in this picture, and says, you know what this is? This is 1,000 songs in your pocket. And immediately my mind went right back to this choice overload from the electronics store just a year ago. My jaw dropped, basically. I was floored at the elegance of how he had just sold. And the difference between that display and what he did, to me, was just absolutely staggering. Apple's message was clear, concise, and spoke directly through to what I wanted out of a product. I cared about songs in my pocket and being able to travel. I didn't care about data rates and megabytes and all these other technical things. Because of that message and the amazing branding that they did from bringing Steve Jobs, if you know, he ended up leaving the company in the 90s and they brought him back. And this was his comeback. And because of what he did, the branding they did, the marketing they did, they became the first $3 trillion company in the world. Now, at the time, I didn't realize those two events, what they were going to do to my life. It ended up being the catalyst that drove me to where I am today. And when people ask me what I do a lot of technical things. I build websites, I build marketing, I help sales coaching, I build systems, I do Google ads, I do a lot of things. But really, I have become a student of human behavior and persuasion, crafts that we typically call marketing and sales. So what can we learn from this? How can we take something, these trillion-dollar companies, these million-dollar budgets, what can we learn from this? And what can we use to make our own businesses better? So number one, I want to talk about what branding is and what branding is not. This is very, very often confused. So branding is not your logo. This is probably the number one. Everyone thinks I need branding, and that just means a logo. It does not mean your logo. It doesn't mean your colors or your fonts. It doesn't mean your website. It doesn't mean your truck, hat, shirt, your vehicle wrap. It doesn't even mean the features of your product and service. That's not branding. what branding truly is, and Apple showed us the way, and other companies followed suit. What branding actually is brand is the sum of the customer experience or perception. A brand is the sum of everything that affects your customer's perception. There's a few ways we can talk about this. We could say the brand is the total sum of everything, which will include your logo and your truck wrap and all of these other things. But that alone isn't branding, because branding is the emotional connection that you create with your audience. Put a simpler term, branding is what people think of you. And that emotional thought, that thought process is really vital. There's a sales cliche that is unbelievably true, and I know it and I still fall prey to it. People make decisions emotionally and then justify that decision logically. And so if we know that every buying decision is an emotional one, then our brand needs to be an emotional brand. Number 2, understanding your brand gap. So this is something that I talk about internally with our team and when we're trying to build companies. A brand gap is the difference between the average market value of what you do compared to the average market value of your service compared to what you can get away with charging. Let's say the average cost for the average paint contractor price for a 2,500 square foot exterior home is $4,000. And I don't know, don't judge me on this, I don't know. But let's just say that it's $4,000 in your area. If you can charge $5,000 or $6,000 because of your brand, that gap, that's the value of your brand. So why can Apple, so we talked about Apple in that presentation, but when they came out with that iPod, it was 3 to 4 times as much as everything else in that shelf that I talked about. All the Toshibas and all the Sonys, they came up with this iPad and they charged like 3 or 4 times as much for it. How are they able to charge multiple times more for effectively the same thing? Their player wasn't better quality musically. Most of them held about the same amount of songs, although no one else said that. So what was the fundamental difference? They all played MP3s. They all hooked to your computer and you downloaded songs. This is before they streamed. So you had to hook them to your computer, download songs. They all came with earbuds. What was the fundamental difference? It wasn't hardware. It wasn't the capabilities. It was the brand. The same thing could be said for other companies. Nike charges 3 to 4 times as much for that compared to like a brand like New Balance. But yet you can buy a decent running shoe from both. Why can Nike charge so much more, charge a premium price, $100, $200 for a pair of shoes, and New Balance is over there at a discount in shelf for $30, $40? Why? It's not because the shoe. Both shoes are comparable quality, they're both good. It's because of brand, because Nike has a story and they built a brand. That gap between average and you is your brand gap. Now, it's important to understand that that brand can be both positive, neutral, or negative. If you've invested a lot of time into building your brand and your customer experience, then that will be a positive change. So if the average is X and you're able to charge above market value, then it's because you've done that branding stuff. You've allowed that to happen. And if you haven't, if you are below market, then you're going to struggle to keep up and you're going to be commoditized and lumped into something that you probably don't want to be in. So, number 3, understanding your customer journey. And so if we think about if the branding is the emotion that your company gives, then the customer journey is key to improving your brand and your company. And I know that Tanner's going to love this because he's all about the customer journey. And that's why his tool, Dripjobs, is amazing because it's part of that process. And I think that we all innately realize that we need to make better processes. And a lot of people here I know Brad Ellison has an amazing process. Jason Paris does. All of the guys on here. Eric has a new painting company. He focuses on that. But the point of this is to reassociate what we think of branding as being that same customer experience. Because if branding is more than a logo, branding is the emotional connection, then everything we do from start to finish is part of that journey and becomes part of our brand. So improving your customer journey is the key to building. So let's talk through an example breakdown. Now, the breakdown I'm going to give you is just one way of breaking it down. You could put different names and titles on this if you'd like, and you could break it down in more or less steps. That's not the important part here. The important part is I want to talk through how every little thing can either give you a positive brand gap, stay neutral, or take away from your brand gap. So let's dive in. First phase that most customers see, is worth noting here too. This breakdown is not from your perspective. It's from the customer's perspective. So this is the order of operations that a customer would engage with you. So number one is normally marketing. Now, this could be a lot of different kinds of marketing. We just had Justin up here talking about cold calling and emailing and door knocking. We had Eric a couple speakers ago talking about Facebook and Instagram ads. I primarily do mostly Google ads. We had Base Coat on here yesterday, also pretty big on the Google side. That's not the important part. The marketing can come from anywhere. The important part is, what does your marketing actually say? Does the marketing you're doing portray the brand image that you want to portray? How many times has someone driven around your city, you're getting off an off ramp from an interstate to kind of get into town, and you pull and you're at a stoplight just getting off an interstate, and you see a really sloppy handwritten sign, "Will paint home," and then there's phone numbers on there, and the phone numbers run off to the side. It's not even like nice handwriting. And what does that say about that client? And if you do that, don't take this as a knock. We all start somewhere, but we need to think about, what does that actually portray for our business? Does it tell the story that we want to do? Do we want to be an elite provider? Do we want to be just average, or do we want to be below average? And because this is the first thing that a customer sees, it's probably the most critical thing that you get right. If a customer sees a sloppy road sign, what kind of customer is going to be calling that sign? Very likely someone that wants a very, very cheap vendor that they're going to nickel and dime to death. So the people, ironically, that do that kind of low-end marketing end up being the same type of person that complain about the customers that they have. But they set the stage for the very problem that you have. So whatever the marketing is, whether it's Google ads, your website, local service ads, video marketing, Facebook and Instagram, postcards, the wrap on your truck, referral marketing even. Maybe you do radio and bus signs and traditional media. It doesn't matter. But what does matter is that you've thought through what you want to say about your company and what you want them to know about you and believe about you and feel about you, because that's the power of branding. That's what branding really is. And this marketing is the first stage. Even if it's a referral, some of you guys work mostly on referrals. I do great work, and that referral business keeps me going. Fantastic. The end of that job, which we'll talk about in a second, the end of that job sets the stage for what that person says to their referral. And that becomes their initial point. So the next door neighbor of the house you just saw, when they saw you on the job site, that was marketing for them. It might have been doing the job for the paint job you were on, but it wasn't to the next door neighbor. To them, that was their first touch point. That was them seeing you in action and starting to paint a picture of who you are and what you are. So it's important that we dial in that marketing. So moving on to the next, This is where Dripjobs is absolute king. The next couple steps, actually. So I'm going to tell you a quick backstory. I primarily work with painters. 95% of my clients are painters. I do take on other contractors. I had a few years ago a refrigerator repair guy out of Chicago called me up, had seen my Google ads work, and was like, Micah, I need Google ads. I need leads yesterday. I've been in the business 20 plus years. I'm really good at what I do, and I just need leads. And this is a long time ago. This is probably 10 plus years ago. And my agency processes were not as refined as they are now. I took him on without much consideration because I knew I could do the thing that he asked for. What I didn't do is make sure that what happened after marketing was on point. And so we set up a landing page and Google Ads and call tracking numbers. We made sure phone recording is on. That's all pretty standard Google Ad stuff. And turned it on. And then it gets going. And I think first week he probably had like 10 or 15 calls. And then I called him the next week and was like, hey, how are things going? He's like, the leads suck. I can't close anybody. I was like, okay, well, he gave me some feedback. I went back to the drawing board, went back to marketing, dove into keywords and did some changes and came back next week for another chat. And we had even more leads and he was still complaining. They still suck. So I was like, okay. So I went in and started listening to call recordings. And here's what I heard. Someone would call and be ring, ring, ring. And I'd hear this guy, what do you want? He's clearly working. He's clearly agitated that someone's interrupting him and wants nothing to do with answering the phone. Now think about that from the customer's perspective. They went to Google. They saw a very nicely written ad. They clicked on it. They saw a very nice landing page with a very easy conversion process. They clicked the button to call, and then they hit that. So what does that say? And this is the point. Most people associate branding with just the marketing stuff. They say it's the website, it's my ads, it's my logo, it's this. No, it has to continue. Yes, it is marketing, but it's also everything after that because it continues to either add to, keep neutral, or subtract what someone thinks of you. And so in that very ridiculous case, he was not a good fit, tried to do some sales coaching, didn't want anything to do with it, moved on. I very quickly adjusted my process and now pre-qualify everyone to make sure that they have some sales process. And if you don't already have this, sign up for Dripjobs. I know Tanner was talking about it earlier. If you didn't hear already, 60 days free of Dripjobs. It is an amazing tool that's going to help you with this part. So nurturing segment, the way that it should work is once someone fills out a form on your website, they get entered into a CRM. And that CRM can help nurture, can send out appointment reminders. It can say, hey, I've got, thanks for getting in touch. Someone will be in touch with you, things like that. We need the communication that happens during this nurturing stage to be good and to add to our brand voice. Now, some of you may have calls. If there's several things in nurturing and not all of it's on the CRM. The CRM is great for the text and the email side of your nurturing sequence, but there's also the phone call part. People may bypass your form on your website and just pick up the call. So using that example, are you answering the phone rudely or are you being professional in answering the phone on time? Not answering your phone and letting it go to voicemail is also part of the brand story. What happens to that customer is they hit your voicemail, they hang up, they go back to Google, and they call the next business. So you need to be able to answer your phone, and you need to be professional when you do it. And you need to have a nurture sequence in place, like Dripjobs, to help you communicate during the nurture sequence. Next, bidding. So if we've done marketing and we've done nurturing, we should now have an appointment. The whole point of nurturing is to take a lead and set an appointment. So if we moved on past that, the next thing that we have is the bidding process. Did you show up on time and dress professionally? Or did you show up in a beaten truck and a ripped, wife beater? Did you show up and, or are you asking empathetic questions to try to understand what matters to them? Or are you just trying to pitch your services regardless of what they think? Did you present your bid on site? Did you go back to the truck and use Dripjobs to work up a proposal and actually sit down with them, show them your numbers, show them what you're going to do, talk about why you're going to do this versus this, and let them answer questions in a friendly environment, non-pressure way? Did you do that? If not, you might be subtracting from your brand, right? So that bidding process is huge. Moving on down, how does the contract section work? Was I able to easily sign my contract? Was the contract easy to understand? Was I able to pay online or write a check? Or was there some convoluted, hard payment method that you were requiring? Did the contract set clear expectations of what's going to happen next? These are all things and part of that process. Next, and this is probably one of the most underlooked, is your production. So most of the time, companies will have a marketing team that's really in tune with branding. They'll have a sales team that they may not consider itself branding, but they're still focused on closing deals. And so their job is to paint the picture of your company in a good light. So in a way, even if by accident, your sales team is probably also doing some emotional branding, even if they don't realize it. But a lot of companies start failing at this. Now, all of a sudden, you've got a marketing pro and a sales pro, or maybe you're a one man, you're a small shop and you're doing both of those things, but you have a sub crew. And I know Brad Ellison talks about this a lot, and I'm pretty sure in his talk later he's going to talk about this. But what happens on the job is also part of that customer experience, and it's pivotal. Because at this point, they've just given you thousands of dollars. They've probably talked to multiple contractors. They definitely went to multiple contractors' websites, and they have vetted you and decided to go with you because of the brand picture that you've painted so far. Now, what happens now if you show up or you're not showing up anymore? Now it's your production crew. Let's say you have a sub crew. Let's say they show up late. They reschedule. Maybe someone in the crew doesn't show and the job is running behind schedule. Do you have extra team members or subs that you can fill in to keep it on task? Right? These are all part of that experience. Did the crew come in and were they respectful of the property? Did they treat the people with respect? A lot of times you see a different person on the job site, somebody that's maybe a little more crass, a little less elegant, and then that translates to a customer experience that's not so great. And now, while you may have gotten the job, you may start running into problems with the job, because not necessarily because you're not doing a good job or they're not painting your walls and trim correctly, but because the communication or experience is so bad, there's friction added, and now they want to complain about every tiny little thing. Whereas if the production went smoothly and your team was properly trained for your values and they knew that their part in the process was also going to help elevate that brand, your brand, they might treat the customer differently. They might do the job differently. They might show up on time. But it's also your part as a team leader to make sure that the people you put in place, your hiring and HR practices become part of this too. Because if you put somebody that's not a good fit to be on a job site, then that's your responsibility. And you did your brand a disservice by doing so. So production is a huge part, and it needs to be part of that customer journey. And last, the end of the job. What do we do at the end of the job? A lot of people just say, okay, cool, we're done. Do a Q&A, and then they leave, do a final walkthrough, and then they're done. But did we take the time to ask questions and see if the customer is actually ecstatic about working with us? Or were they just meh, right? Were they so happy with the quality of work and your support and the brand and the customer experience that they're willing, and not just willing, but ready and eager to leave you an online review and potentially tell their neighbors and friends and people at church and all that kind of stuff? Are they ready to do that? If they're not, there may be something in this process that went wrong, right? Does your company make ongoing support and maintenance after you leave? A month from now, they realize there's a touch up. What do you do? Was that made clear? Is there maybe some sort of support or maintenance program? Or maybe how does the process work for coming back and doing other work in the future? At the end of this job, it's not just about the last brushstroke and leaving. It's also about leaving that customer on a place where they want to work with you again. They were happy, ecstatic, elated about the job that you did, and they're ready and eager to tell other people about that process. And if that's not true, then somewhere along from marketing to here, we went wrong. So the key thing here, the key takeaway is that improving your customer journey is the key to becoming the biggest and best in your area. I would say even outside of your area. It's huge. Outlining the processes from the customer's perspective and optimizing every single aspect, both micro and macro, everything that they do is the key to growing that company and having the kind of company that you want. My final thoughts here. Your brand is your customer's emotional perception of you, and it's your job, your responsibility to influence that in the way that you want them to perceive you. The single biggest thing you can do is to become a student of your customer, similar to how Steve Jobs did with Apple. He was wildly successful with what he did in the company that he built, not because of the products, but because of his undying, relentless goal to understanding his consumer. And if you take even a little bit of that and you optimize for their experience, listen to your customer's feedback without getting insulted, without getting defensive, and you're always iterating your processes to be better for you and, most importantly, your customer, that is really the entire process of becoming a better brand. So with that said, Tanner, that's the end of my presentation. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys got a ton of value out of that. I know that's not normally the kind of thing that I talk about, Tanner. You've seen a bunch of stuff I do, but this was kind of the mile up of what I see. And the brands that I work with, I think Russell Peach is a really good example. Russell Peach is an amazing dude. And he doesn't just think about, yeah, he's got a really cool logo and a really cool vehicle wrap, but he thinks about constantly every single process. Every phone call I've ever had with Russell has always been him thinking about something new that he could make better in his business. And he's not doing it for him. Partially, yeah, I mean, there is some thing will come back, but part of it is just because he wants to build a better customer experience, so he knows that's going to elevate his company. And I know, Tanner, you do that too. You're always talking about process, and that's probably part of the reason why you built Dripjobs in the first place. Am I right?
It was a necessity, man. This is my favorite. I mean, out of all this, like, this is my thing too, man. I love this. I think it's
Yeah.
so important. It's hard to put into words, but you did a really good job. Like, it's just
Thank you.
really hard to put this like thing into words, but if we can be empathetic toward our customers, and it's about alignment, man. And it's such a cool topic. Micah, you're a gem, brother. I appreciate what you've done on this slide to bring in something different that nobody was ready for, but I know it delivered. Guys, give me some questions from Micah as we transition on Liftoff 2024. Let me get some questions here. I'm going to go through, guys. If you have any questions. Oh, Micah, don't you offer a service or something?
Yeah, I actually have one more slide. There's actually 3 ways that I help people grow. If anyone's interested in chatting with me, I have 3 different main ways that I do. I have a Facebook group called Local Growth Academy, free group, and I do live stuff there. I have like downloadable resources and guides. I do marketing campaign audits and a bunch of really cool stuff there. And that's all there. That's 100% free. We actually just launched a coaching program, something we were working on for about 6 months. That's at localgrowthacademy.com. And then, of course, we have our agency services at searchgrow.com, whereas most of you guys know me from that. The other stuff is a little bit newer, but we're really excited about launching that education side of our business in 2024. We did that mainly because some people either have been burned by agencies in the past and just don't want to do it. And so we basically just opened up our SOPs for that. or maybe they can't afford it. There's a lot of people that are at a place like, especially in that like new spot where they are maybe under a couple $100,000 a year and they just cannot afford to spend several $1,000s on marketing. I'm trying to give them tools to get to that next level, regardless of whether they work with me after that or not. It's irrelevant. I've got playbooks in there for exactly how to get from that starting spot up to where you're at like the $500,000 spot. Typically around that spot, I think that most people should probably hire an agency. But the coaching program and the LGA group is designed for people that are under that. And it's designed to help them get some traction. And if anyone wants to chat, just search quickgrow.com/call.
Love it. Love it. Jason Paris is dying to know about the Bernoulli principle. Any thoughts on that?
I'm actually not sure what that is.
Well, maybe Jason could tell us in your speech, because we got Jason and we got Brad coming in together. I love it. I love it. So any other questions for Micah, guys? Jump in. What's that link again? One more time. I'm gonna post that link here.
Search clickgrow.com/call.
/call.
I see a question here from Greg that figure where we should get an agency. It's Greg, it's not a hard rule. But I typically see that people that are around the 500K mark are typically at a place where they should probably hire an agency, maybe a little bit lower, maybe a little bit higher. And it kind of depends on exactly what kind of marketing you're doing. And then I know like Brad Ellison has brought his marketing back in-house. And a lot of people say that once you start getting up to like the multiple million, like the $3 million, you might still have marketing vendors, but you're probably also going to need to have marketing in-house as well, or your entire marketing in-house. So it's really kind of somewhere in, I'd say, the 300,000 to 3 million range where most people are going to be good fit to work with a marketing agency. Lower than that, you probably need to put in some sweat equity and find a program that can help you do the things you need to do to get there. And then in that middle, you might have different agencies doing different things. I know some people have me doing Google, have Eric doing Facebook, and then maybe have Justin doing outbound. Like you might deal with multiple agencies because every one of them has specialties. Like I do not do outbound. I don't do what Justin just did before me. I don't do it. I have done outbound cold calling personally, but I don't do it at a level where I would ever want to train it. And then Eric is actually, he's the man on Facebook stuff. So a lot of people will hire different people for different roles. And then there's probably also some logic into which one you want to do first, but that's a little bit longer of a conversation than we have time for here.
Love it, man. Guys, connect with Micah. Brother, I appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for what you're bringing to not only the value here, but to our Dripjobs clients, man. And I know we'll be connecting soon. Thank you,
Awesome.
guys.